Now, a little while ago, I decided that I should look into the CD/CI pipelines for building Chocolatey packages, because a lot of our infrastructure in various places that I've been working was moving away from having any form of Windows containers or any form of kind of virtual machines in favor of native cloud solutions, which presented a bit of a problem given how Chocolatey packages are built in general, as they are usually provisioned in full-fat VMs and scripts are run. So you can imagine how happy I was to find out that there was an article a while back suggesting that there was a Chocolatey CI in a Docker image, and more importantly, that there was a Linux container image. This felt like a eureka moment, and I decided to give it a go. Unfortunately, once I spun it up, I ran into a few itty-bitty little problems. Number one, the container image itself would require some additional work to make it work the way I wanted, but I'm not going to back away from a couple of scripts. That didn't seem like a huge effort from my part. And two, I kind of ran into a teeny little tiny issue regarding the fact that the Docker image itself was based on top of a rather old Debian image, which unfortunately, if we look at the calendar, sadly expired from support this year, making it rather unusable for most intents and purposes. But this did not deter me, so I went one step further and asked myself the question of, well, first of all, does it still work? And what modifications would I need to make it work? So, with that in mind, I went ahead and I fired up the original Docker container as per the article and said, let's give it a try. So here I went and created the image, or created a Docker container file from the original image and added a couple of customizations. One of them being the new new Chocolatey community package. So rather than the old AU PowerShell function, we import the Chocolatey-OU, and the other one I copy across some source files for testing. So in this case, I have a Chocolatey package that I can just go ahead and run. So if we go into the folder here, I have my little package, and we go ahead and fire that up and say, okay, let's do an update and see if the package is, possible to update. Spoiler alert, it does work. So here we can actually get a new update and everything works as expected and package gets created. Now there are a couple of little caveats to this which I need to cover. One of them is that the traditional update does require a little bit of modification. So first of all, like I said, you have to make sure you have the Chocolatey-OU package. The other part of it is to make sure that you have this before update into your update configuration, because you're not able to use the checksum. So you have to turn the checksum off, get checksum null, and get this get remote function to get the remote checksum. And that's it. It basically works the same as you would normally have. So it's not a huge configuration difference, but it was one that did require a little bit back and forth to kind of work out what exactly was not working the way that it should. So with that said, I decided to plow on with creating an Ubuntu version, because Ubuntu LTS is actually quite high, and there was a supported version of Fossil that can still run the now deprecated packages in terms of monochrome, because the support there for monochrome is basically the .NET frameworks, and unfortunately that itself is now a deprecated project. So I ran into a couple of things. One is that I have to use the .NET SDK 6.0. I'm not terribly happy about that because there is an 8. And the monochrome itself, you have to download the various SDK parts of that. So we're going to separate this into two parts. One is the SDK part and the other is the actual running process. I also downloaded the Chocolatey repository as part of this, because we do need obviously to build the Chocolatey CLI, and to be honest, I copied a lot of the labels across as well in the example, because I was just trying to identify what would work, what would not work. So then I have my run build configuration with a lot of the Chocolatey copied labels. I do apologize for that. And then we have to do some other configurations. So we copy across the Chocolatey files, we go and get our various dependent packages, so the monochrome again, where we also install the runtime this time. We installed PowerShell because we're going to be running the PowerShell modules and functions in order to update our Chocolatey packages. And then at the end of that, we're going to install the PowerShell function from the community now, which is the Chocolatey-AU for the third or fourth time of mentioning it in this video. And that's pretty much it. And we're just going to start a PowerShell command line so that we can interact with it and prove that it works the way we want. Now, for the purposes of this video, I've already gone ahead and built this image because it does take a little while to run the first time. So we're just going to fire it up and happily run into the terminal so we can test the functionality. So here you can see it ran much faster than it would in reality. So if you're building this for the first time, please allow 15-20 minutes easily for downloading all the packages and running through the various different steps. Now that we've built our image, we can go ahead and do the next part of this, which is to go into the command line of that container by just firing up the docker run, and we can now go in and see, okay, let's find a package. Now in this case I actually copied a couple more packages to prove that they work the way I expected or would update the way I expected. And in this example I said, okay, well let's go ahead and grab the various containers. So here I have found that my OpenJDK for Java was already up to date, so there was no point in running that again. So we'll do a different one, and we're going to do the self-hosted integrated runtime. Again, this is mostly to prove that it's working as expected more than anything else. If you really want to put this into a CI/CD pipeline, I included an example configuration PowerShell file that would basically trigger your package updates. Now, sadly, again, there are differences between the update all that you would normally get in basically the Chocolatey config. I couldn't get it to work under Linux, and I was not willing to go and rewrite the whole module just to make it work. So if I know someone's willing to kind of fork that and do some updates, that would be appreciated. But for the rest of the time, I just created a very quick PowerShell script that will jump into each and every repository. You can select your downloaded list in terms of where you want to grab that file from. So if you have your packages on some form of GitHub or alternative thingy, you can just simply download them, run through each package in turn, and potentially add the update or push command to your repository or wherever. So you can kind of use the script there as an example. So with that said, here we can see that my package finished in the meantime. I'm just going to do a quick command line output here to prove that the file exists. One thing to note, when you're doing the push, you will need to use a additional switch, as the build here of Chocolatey actually comes out as an alpha build. It's not a finished product, and that's something also to note. But I couldn't find any problem with the functionality, so your mileage may vary.